Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to go over the concept of what is called functional overloading. Again, functional overloading. And what that means, quite simply, is when you have multiple functions in a program that are named the same but have a different number and types of parameters or the values that you pass into them. Let me show you how that works. But before I do, why would you want to do this? Well, sometimes you might have a situation where you have a function that, or a set of functions that basically does the same thing. So you might want, if you like, to name them the same and just change the arguments that go within them. So let me demonstrate how this works. I will pretend that I have a function or three functions or methods, they're the same thing for our purposes, called add numbers. And let's just say add numbers can take one integer, it can take two integers, or it could take three integers. It really depends on which flavor, if you like, of add numbers do I want to call. So what I can do is, rather than declare three methods, one called add numbers 1, one called add numbers 2, and one called add numbers 3, what I can do is I can just make and create one method called add numbers and just differentiate it from the prior ones or the other ones by the parameters that I'm passing into it. So in this case, what I'm doing is I created one method called add numbers. And then let me put in the third method, which I'm going to call add numbers as well. So I'm going to have three methods called add numbers. And add numbers, the first one would have one integer that we're passing into it that you see on line 6. The second one has two integers that we're starting on line 9. And the third one, starting on line 12, we're passing in three integers. Now, the only difference has to be is the method has to take different arguments and different types. So anything would work. Floats, integers, strings. In our simple example, we're just illustrating this by using integers. But the big thing here is notice how you have the same method named three different ways with different arguments that we're passing into it. Now, that's called overloading. So why would we want to overload again? Well, now that you've seen this, think about some things that you might want to do in your program that, like, for example, if you had different ways for some reason that you added numbers together, but it was still basically adding numbers. I mean, you could say write a method called add numbers 1, add numbers 2, and add numbers 3, but there's a better way, isn't there? So really, when you're using overloaded functions, it's more of a design issue than a technical issue, where you're saying, you know what? When we do this, it's basically grouping these by functionality. So later on when you debug, or later on when you might have someone maintaining your code, they can look at this and say, okay, these are overloaded functions. That means that whoever wrote them are grouping them for some way. Again, think about a filing cabinet. How you file them and how you organize them is really up to you. But by looking at this, if I was debugging code and I saw add numbers overloaded 3 times, that just tells me, again, it's not a technical thing, but that just tells me that functionally the developer's trying to tell me something, trying to say that these are alike, they're doing almost the same thing, they might be calling each other, they're basically need to be kind of grouped. So don't think as overloading as a technical thing that you have to do. Think of it as a design thing that you should do. As a matter of fact, in a code review, it might get called out if you had different functions that were basically doing the same thing, that you probably should just overload them. Now remember, overloading isn't a technical thing. It doesn't mean you should do it. It's a design issue that you might want to do it for readable code and for posterity. So I'm going to add on lines 4, 5, and 6 the code that's going to call our overloaded functions. And I think I need to have a semicolon there on line 10, 14, and 18. I'll see, but I'll let you look at this for a second, and then I'm going to execute it, and I should get add numbers 1 was called, then add numbers 2, then add numbers 3. And just as I expected or suspected, I need a semicolon on line 10, line 14, and line 18. So let me do that and then execute my program and see if I get the expected output. And I do. Add numbers was called, add numbers 2 was called, add numbers 3 was called. Now this works as expected. So this is a very simple example of how you can use a good design in your code to use overloaded functions. Now overloaded functions, we're using them here in Java because that's the language we're using, but that concept transcends Java into other languages. So if you're doing other languages, overloading functions works the same way. Thank you for listening. This is all I had for you today. Have a great day. Thank you.